The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today for what is going to be a really fantastic hands-on workshop. It's focused, this whole series is focused on strategy, digital and brand. So I hope that you've been able to register for all three. You'll notice that you're in listen-only mode. However, we will allocate some time at the end for questions. So make sure you use the question toolbox to type in your question. Today is the first of three workshops, as I mentioned, and it's titled Strategies to Implement Now to Bounce Back Stronger and Faster. And with me today, I have, firstly, I'd like to introduce Melinda Larkin, who's head of AFTA Education and Training. So Mel's on the webcam as well. So give us a wave, Mel.
Thanks, Jo.
And then to deliver the content, I'm very pleased to welcome Sonja van den Bosch, who is founder and MD of Twinlife Marketing. We are very lucky to have Sonja present these workshops. She's an experienced marketeer, strategist, leader, and all-round businesswoman. She works in travel and understands the industry, but she also works outside travel and brings some broad and refreshing perspectives to businesses and brands. Sonja has provided us with a worksheet for today, and I sent this around via email yesterday. But if you didn't get this because you registered late or even registered this morning, don't worry. If you look at your toolbar, you'll see a section called Handouts, and I've uploaded that worksheet there. So you can easily click on that and download the PDF for use today. Well, I think that's enough talking from me. So I just want to welcome you, Sonja, and thank you so much for delivering this three-part series for our members and industry friends.
Thank you so much, Jo and Melinda, for the opportunity to be here today and to facilitate this workshop about how to bounce back stronger and faster. I love travel. I've always traveled. I will always travel. And as Jo mentioned, I work in travel. I've worked in travel. I have many friends and even family members who are in the travel industry worldwide. So anything I can do to help each and every one of you and the industry through this time, it's my absolute pleasure. And as Jo said, this is the first workshop of a series of three. And today we'll talk about strategy, one of my favorite topics. So I'll give you a bit of background about myself and my business. And I'm going to look at what we can learn from previous recessions and previous times of crisis. We'll also look at what's happening today in this COVID situation. And then we'll go to the working part where you're going to use your worksheet, and I'll take you through a 5-step framework that will help you set up the best possible future for your business. And then in the end, there's some questions as well. So let's get started. So I was born and raised in the Netherlands, a tiny country in Europe. And I lived at the border of Belgium and Germany. And as a child, I would ride my bicycle over to Germany, and I would speak German and take out my German Deutschmarks out of my wallet. And then I would cycle to Belgium and do the same day. I take out the Belgian francs and sometimes had to speak French. And, you know, borders, even although there were borders when I was growing up there, were not an issue. And now when my kids and I go over and visit my parents, my kids really enjoy riding on a bicycle and going over the borders because the borders are not there anymore. And I've always been very fascinated with different cultures, different languages, different countries. And when I was in high school, my favorite subject was geography. And the equivalent of our HSC in the Netherlands for geography, we learned about Russia and we learned about the United States. And this was in the 80s. This was in the time of the Cold War. And I was so fascinated by it that by the time I was a student, I decided I wanted to go to Russia and I wanted to go to the US in 1 year. The issue was I was a poor student and I didn't have any money. But what I did have was inventiveness. So I started thinking about how am I going to make this work? And I decided to go and to America with a company called Camp America, working in a summer camp. So that was done. And then I had to find my way to Russia without any budget. And I came across this lady. She was a Russian lady living in the Netherlands. And together with her husband, she had a small travel agency. And what she was doing is, in that time, she was organizing trips to Russia. And I started talking to her, and she invited me to her home. And I remember the fascinating stories she was telling me. And we were having this really sweet Russian coffee. And I said to her, I would love to join one of your journeys, but I have no money. But what I can do for you is I can organize the marketing sites. Why don't I go to the students in my community and I get the students together for a trip to Russia? And that's what we did. So in the end, we organized 2 trips with 40 people, 40 students, and I went on those, and that was in 1993. Very exciting. In 2001 and 2002, my husband and I, we traveled around the world, and we set up a travel blog, and that was before they even knew what the word travel blog was meant to be. I'll talk a bit more about this in the digital workshop, but this is mainly the main reason why we ended up in Sydney. If you look at the photo at the top right, that's when I was working for the lovely team at Travel Indochina, and it's my Australian marketing and BDM team. And this was us doing an amazing trip through India. And we traveled there before we launched this destination to the market in 2006. And then the photo at the bottom is my colleague Lin Lee and myself in Vietnam last year in Ho Chi Minh City, where we were having the first initial conversations about Luxperia DMC Collective, a travel company where I'm now advisory board member. And this is my company. My company is called Twinlife Marketing. And what we basically do is we provide strategic leadership and marketing that uplifts both business and people. And we either work with executive teams on their business planning, and we mentor marketing managers and turn them around from being really great implementers into good strategic thinkers and leaders. Or we even work with companies who don't have any marketing teams, and we help them develop strategy and then drive outcomes through execution. And then most importantly and most exciting for me is we empower teams so that they can take over and stand on their own feet. So we teach them how to fish. So today is all about empowering you and empowering you to get out of these times better and stronger. And as tides, markets do go up and down. But my saying is, my mantra is, there are always opportunities everywhere. And every time there's a recession, it will create winners and losers. Now, obviously, there is no playbook for what we're going through at the moment. This is absolutely history-making time. However, there are always things that we can learn from history. So let's have a look at that. And let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at what winning companies do differently during a crisis. So there's a really great report. It's called the Bain Report, and it came out in May 2019. It's called Beyond the Downturn, Recession Strategies to Take the Lead. And what they basically did is they researched 3,900 companies worldwide during the last financial crisis. And they looked at what is the difference between what winning companies do and what losing companies did. So let's have a look at that. So there were 3 main things. Losing companies, they said, they panicked and they froze and they waited far too long to take decisive action, which meant they were far too late to get back into the game. And they sometimes put their head in the sand and said, why is it always happening to me? Whereas winning companies, yes, they acknowledged what was happening. However, they also had a future-based approach. Where do we want to be at the end of this crisis? Where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years' time? And what do we need to do now to get there? Losing companies also took out everything of their business, the fat, but also the muscle. And you know, just as with a human, if we take out the fat, but also the muscle, by the time we want to run again, and we need to start up the muscle, we're far too late to be in the race. So things that are really valuable to a business are research and development, sales and marketing, valuable staff members. Winning companies, on the other hand, they absolutely manage their costs, which is obviously very important. They got out the fat, but they didn't cut into the muscle. They really focused on efficiencies and process improvements. And then lastly, losing companies took some very unmeasured bets. They would go too far away from their core strengths, or they would make very left-centered decisions, and the decisions were not very strategic. Whereas winning companies started reinvesting time or energy or even resources and money in growth. And this is about how can we reinvent ourselves? Can we start talking to customers again? So that's the difference. I highly recommend you look up this report. It's available online, or alternatively, I can make sure you get a copy via Joe as well. And then let's look at where we are now. So obviously, we are in a downturn. Consumer spending and economic growth have dropped. And how will we recover? Nobody knows. You know, there are different scenarios. If we look to the optimists, they talk about the V-shaped recovery. We're at the bottom and we go up. If you look at the pessimists, they're talking more about the L-shaped recovery, which is we're down and we're going to stay down a bit longer, but you know, ultimately we're going to go up. And then there's people in the middle who are talking about the W-shaped recovery or the swoosh-shaped recovery. Yes, we're down, but we will eventually get up there. Now, if you look at the signs, the stock market was down, but the stock market is starting to recover again. So the one thing that's for sure is that we will go up again. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know in what shape it will be, but we'll go up again. So there's three things to look at. There's three stages in any recovery from any downturn. And the first step is to survive. We need to make sure we're still here. But the second step is we want to revive, we want to reimagine. So that ultimately we can grow and thrive again. So today, and this session is all about reviving and reimagining so that we're setting yourself up for that growth and to thrive again. So let's look at the consumer behavioral changes. And the changes I'm going to show you are not necessarily new, but they have been heightened by the COVID situation. And these are changes that we can actually use to our opportunity. And it's really good to be aware of them. The first one is well-being. I mean, this has been a trend for over years now, but the whole COVID situation has really heightened the focus on feeling healthy, both physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. So I really believe that there's a great opportunity for travel to link into that whole well-being trend. The other trend we're seeing is the respect for and the willingness to spend more time in nature. We've really realized how important nature is to all of us, close to home, but also far away. And people want to connect to this. And again, a great opportunity to combine that with travel and with holidays. And this is actually a photo of my son, one of my sons, at the Australia Walkabout Wildlife Park, which is a beautiful animal sanctuary on the Central Coast in New South Wales. So for people close to Sydney, really great place to visit. And then the next one is, in a time of crisis, we really get to understand what's important in life. And we go back to our purpose, our why. And travel can give a really great opportunity to do something that is valuable, not only for you, but also for the people that you touch. In the photo below, my kids are doing a program which is called Be a Local for a day. And it's in Hoi An in Vietnam, where we basically spend the day on an organic farm. And my kids learned how to be a farmer. And it was a really great experience where we were not only touching the local people and supporting them, but where we also were learning something. And that's an experience we're bringing back home with us, and that will stay with us forever. I don't know if any of you have read the Insta book that Bruce Pontip, the founder of G Adventures, has written during this pandemic, and it's called Unlearn, the Year the Earth Stood Still. And he really talks about travel after the pandemic. And he talks about this quite a lot, about this purpose. And he basically says you can do two things. You can give to charity, or you can be active. And he says, when you're active and when you go into a local community and you're touching people, you're not only touching them, but you're also transforming yourself. So that's where travel plays a really big role. And then there's obviously localization. What we've seen in Australia is that we all want to support our local businesses, our local community. Let's go to our local coffee shop. Let's go back to our local restaurants. Think about, how do you sit in your local community? How are you positioned? Is your local community supporting you? Are you supporting the local community? Are there more opportunities for you there to work together with other local businesses? And obviously, from a travel perspective, when we travel, how can we make sure that we support other local companies in other local places? And then the last consumer behavior is obviously private travel. We want to get away from big crowds. And this will end up in this travel trend of doing more private travel or small group travel. So think about these consumer behavioral changes and how you can benefit from this. Obviously, at the moment, consumers are also looking for security. Where can I be safe? Where can I be held? Now, you might have seen the research that AFTA has done, and AFTA researched what the advantages are for people to book with a travel agent. And there are three very great advantages. The first one is to protect me when things go wrong. I know I'll be in good hands. Secondly, you make it easy for me. It's easy. It's a one-stop shop, one person who will arrange everything for me. And then you also inspire me. You give me ideas. You have knowledge that I don't have, especially when I go to a destination where I haven't been before. So they're really, really good reasons. Now, I personally think that travel agents have done an amazing job during this difficult time. One of my dear friends, Fabian, who is a travel agent, he was telling me how much satisfaction he got from helping stranded Australians come back home, and how much joy he had in helping them change their travel arrangements. Now, I really believe that those are great stories to be shared. Obviously, I'm also aware of the negative press that the travel agency has had over the past few weeks. However, I believe if there's a negative story, we need to combat that with 10 positive stories. And there's so many positive stories to tell, which will not only benefit you and your business, but the whole industry. So share them. The other thing that people are looking at is the credibility. And again, AFTA research showed that 82% of consumers are more likely to book with an ATOS accredited agency than with a non-accredited agency. Use this. This is your quality stamp. This is your trust. This is influencing consumer decisions to book with your travel agent. So use this to your advantage if you're not already doing it. This is the new world, isn't it? They say it takes 66 days to form a routine. Well, we've been in lockdown about for 66 days for now. So people are used to working from home. And a lot of people don't want to go back to working full-time from the office anymore. What this has created is obviously a whole digital transformation. And Zoom was the most downloaded app between the 26th of March and the 1st of April worldwide. It had 3.2 million downloads. Amazing. So this whole digital transformation is giving you really great opportunities. And that's why we have a digital workshop coming up next week. We will go into this a bit deeper. And then last but not least, animal spirit. So during the lockdown, what happened? We were feeling like tigers in a cage. We're locked up. You know, our freedom was gone. And you know what's happening? We're ready to break out. And we want to experience the world again. You know, we want to taste the freedom. We want to spend our money. Last week, I was at a webinar with about 800 business people. And they did a poll while we're on the webinar. And they asked us what we missed most during the lockdown. And out of the 800 people, 33 people were saying we missed family and friends the most. But the next big thing, 23% of people said we missed holidays and travel. Now, I thought that was very encouraging because the next thing after that was I missed cafes and restaurants by 20%. So let's make sure we're ready when these people and this animal spirit comes onto the market and we're ready to, you know, start living again. Let's make sure we're ready to service those people. So how will we bounce back stronger and faster? Let's move into action. We've gone through the background and let's now go through the 5-step framework. It's time to take out your worksheet and put it next to you. And I'm going to invite you to make your worksheet your best friend over the next few days and over the next few weeks. And why is that? I would like you to get a lot of value out of the workshop that we're doing today. And the more you process this information and you work with this, the more value you will get out of it. So what we're doing today is I'm planting seeds and I'm giving you a framework and I'm giving you ideas to think about, but you might not necessarily get the solution straight away. If you don't know the answer straight away, a really good thing to do is to ask really good questions. So what I've done at the end of each step of the framework, I've put down a couple of questions. So you can use these questions yourself, or if you have better questions, write them down. And this is a really good way to find solutions. If I have to come up with a creative solution either for one of our clients or for myself, I cannot force the answer. So what I do is I ask questions, really good questions. I sit on it, I sleep on it, I go for a walk, and the answers will eventually come. So let's go through the framework. The first step is leadership, and it's really important. It starts with us, and it starts with us each and every day. And my philosophy is that each and every day we have a choice. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen to us. Nobody knows. But we can choose how we respond to this. And this is really important. It's about how we turn up, not just for ourselves, but also for our team members, our customers, our family, our friends, everybody in the community that we touch. And obviously, we are in a time of great uncertainty because we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. And the most critical skill to have in great times of uncertainty is the ability to adapt to changes. So obviously, We are in the now, and we want to make sure that we survive in the current moment. However, we also want to build towards a new future. We know that this future will look different from the way it was before. So, what are we doing now to make sure that we will thrive in this new future? And you know what's really exciting to me? Is that we can create this future. It's in our hands. And what's even more exciting is we can create this with our teams and maybe even with our customers. I'm going to share a personal story with you about something that I did with my family, and that has worked really well actually, and that you can easily translate into doing with your team. So these are my boys. They're 12-year-old twin boys, year 7. And when lockdown happened, they obviously started doing their schoolwork from home, which only took them about 2 hours a day. So they had plenty of time left over for other things. So my husband and I decided to get them to do the cooking. Each of them had to cook one night a week. And what happened was they did a really good job. They like cooking anyway, but they started to cook all the favorite family recipes. It was great. But after 2 weeks, I said to them, okay, let's change the rules. From next week on, I would like you to do something completely new each week. New recipe, you decide, doesn't matter what it is. Now, I can tell you that's changed the whole ball game. All of a sudden, we were getting fresh pasta, homemade chicken stock, homemade dumplings, beef Wellington, homemade cakes, you name it. Amazing experience, obviously, for us. We really enjoyed all the great food, but also really great learning experience for my boys. What happened? They've obviously gone back to school. So we said to them, when you go back to school, we go back to normal. You don't need to do this anymore. However, when we have friends over on the weekend for dinner, we will be cooking the whole dinner together. So last Saturday, we had friends over and Dylan cooked the appetizer. My husband and I did the main course and Jordi baked a beautiful cake. So I'm really excited that we're not have gone back to the old way. So we were doing everything, but we're really working together as a team now. And it's been a really great and enriching experience for all of us. Now, why am I telling you this story? You can take this example and do the same thing with your team members. Empower them. Help them step out of their comfort zone. You might be very surprised by the new inventive things they will be coming up with that will help you and your business. So leadership is about setting the scene. So the questions you can ask yourself, and either write them down on your sheet or think about some other ones, is how do I want to turn up each and every day? But also, what support do I need for this? Because it's not always easy to turn up in such a positive, I've got a choice way. How will I support myself to make sure I'm my best possible self each and every day? And how will I engage and align my team? So that's leadership. Let's look at the next one. That's direction. Direction is about where are we going to focus our time and our resources. We all have the same amount of time in a day. We all have a certain amount of energy. So how are we going to make sure that we're using it on the things that really matter to us and our business, and we're not wasting time and we're not wasting resources? So it starts with thinking about your direction and your strategic planning. And what does this mean? This is about being very clear about where you are today and where you want to go tomorrow, after the crisis, in 3 years' time, in 1 year's time. Because only once you know where you want to get to, can you work out the journey to get there. This is very similar to when, if you are a travel agent, you're working with your customers. If someone comes into your agency and knows exactly where they want to go, or what they want to get out of their holiday, you can easily help them. Whereas if they have no idea, your job is a whole lot more difficult. The strategic direction and planning is important. The thinking phase before we do the doing. The issue is, in general in business, that 86% of executive teams spend less than 1 hour a month on strategic planning. That's not enough. You know, when I was working in my corporate roles, in travel, outside travel, and now in my business, that's my role. My role is to look into the future and to constantly create the best possible future, no matter whether we're in a crisis or not. And it's really important work that's often pushed aside. So strategic planning, important to make some time for this. The second step is, once you know what you want to do, or once you know where you want to go on holidays, it's doing the activities. And we've got an issue there as well, that 68% of strategic plans fail because of poor execution. Execution is really, really important, to have it consistent and to have it disciplined. What we do when we work with clients, we are their local guides. Like when you go on a holidays and you go into the jungle, you know, it's really great to go with a guide who knows where all the pitfalls are. That's what we do when we work with clients. We make sure to keep them on track. We make sure we're still in the right direction. We make sure they're not wasting time and money and doing the wrong things. It's doing those activities. And then at the end, it's really key to look at your results. Have we achieved what we wanted to achieve? Have we gotten the outcomes that we hoped we were getting? And if we got them, why is it? Or if we didn't get them, why is it that we didn't get them? And what can we change? Can we optimize? So it goes back into the planning of strategy. And it's similar, you know, you come back from a holiday and you go, oh, what was great, what was maybe not so great, and what will be our next holiday? So that's your strategic direction and planning. Now, a tool that I love using when we do strategic planning, which is quite simple, but actually quite potent, is something called a SWOT analysis. And some of you might have seen this, some of you might not know what it is. So SWOT analysis is basically a tool that lets you take a picture of your business. And it shows you where you are today. It shows you what you're very good at, your strengths. It shows you what you're not so good at, your weaknesses. It shows you where the opportunities are. And it also shows you where maybe the threats are. Now, I like to turn it around, and I always like to start with the opportunities. And I always like the opportunities, the biggest quadrant, because that's where the gold is. So what I've done, I've put together a SWOT for this pandemic with some general opportunity, strengths, weaknesses, and threats that I'll take you through. And some of them might be relevant for you, some of them might be not relevant for you. But I really encourage you to do this exercise for your business. So what are the opportunities? And we've touched on some of them already. Digital transformation. We can do stuff with that. Tune in next week to the webinar about this. We can show our human sides. People seem to be far more real at the moment. It's a really good time to bring our team closer. You know, in Dutch, we have a saying that in times of crisis, you get to know who your real friends are. This is a time to really bring people closer. We get to learn new skills. We all had to jump on Zoom meetings or do webinars or do things very differently. And, you know, we have a great opportunity to support customers, suppliers, or even competitors through this time of crisis. And we've got extra time. How are we using this time? Are we wasting it with negative media news, or are we doing it to teach ourselves new things? This changes in consumer behavior that will be positive towards our business. So focus on these opportunities and think about what opportunities are there for my business. Obviously, we've got strengths in our business. Hopefully, you know, we've got a good strategic direction. We might have history, strong leadership, your brands, which we'll be talking about in our third workshop, your values, your relationships, your accreditation. use your strengths. Now is it, you should always use them, but now is definitely a time to hone in on your strengths. Obviously, there's some weaknesses. Most weaknesses that I'm seeing at the moment are financial. And you know what? They're inefficiencies. So my recommendation is optimize where we can. And then there's some threats. The biggest threats, I really believe, is complacency and panicking. And then obviously cutting out activities that create value. And there's some things, that we can't control, like economic climate or border closures. Can't do anything about it, but obviously threat to our industry. So use this model and work with it. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm currently working with Luxperia DMC Collective, and I'm helping them roll out their model worldwide. And this crisis has really helped us relook at our business model and look at what are our weaknesses and how can we turn them into a strength, and how can we also use the opportunities that are available at the moment. And I have permission to share this with you. So this is the traditional inbound model. There's the DMC Luxperia company in the middle. And we obviously service agents and tour operators who service travelers. And, it happens via email, via bank transfer, and there might be an internal booking engine. Now, Luxperia is situated in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, we're obviously the DMC. But we also want to be the DMC in other Asian destinations. So we had to start opening up offices so that travelers could have a unique, a uniformly delivered experience. Our weakness is we don't have the capital to open up operations in destinations. So we had to rethink, how are we going to make sure that we keep this model while giving extra value to agents, tour operators, and also travelers? And we've come up with this really innovative workflow that I'm very, very excited about. So we're combining the best of both worlds. So Luxperia Collective DMC will only have a head office in Vietnam. However, we're partnering with local DMCs. They're locally owned and operated in other countries. So we're supporting locally owned and operated businesses. We're also supporting them because we make sure they adhere to the Luxperia quality standards, and we give them support. We mentor them so that we can ensure that the travelers get a very enriched experience. From a travel agency perspective, we've looked at digitalization, our booking process, make it easier. So we'll have the opportunity for travel agents and tour operators to book online or to book offline, which means there's now 24/7 access and there will be faster turnaround time. So I'm really grateful that this crisis has put us into this creative thinking mode, and we've come up with this innovative workflow, because I believe that this is a far better outcome for both the travel operators and the travelers, and then ultimately Luxperia DMC Collective as well. So in your direction, think about the following questions. How much time am I currently spending thinking about our strategic direction? And how much time would I like to spend on this in the future? And where do I really want our travel business to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And what are the hidden opportunities for our business? All right, let's move to the next step. The next step is about value, and it's about reframing value. Value is not just about revenue, not just about profit, not just about dollars. It's also about quality of relationships, trust, loyalty, longevity, reputation. Now is a time where you can really ruin your goodwill, or where you can really boost it. You can ruin it by saying the wrong things or doing the wrong things. So how are we boosting our goodwill? And what is goodwill actually? So goodwill reflects the value of the intangible assets in your business, such as good customer and employee relations, a strong market position, and also any patents you have or proprietary technology. Now, we've had quite a few clients who in this time, where it was a bit more quiet, have worked on working out their processes and systems and updating their technology so that they can reap the benefits. I'll talk to you a little bit more about the customer and employee relations and a strong market position in the next 2 steps. But before I do that, I'll give you an example about what happened to us, our business, Twinlife Marketing. So obviously, we were also hit by the COVID-19 situation. And we had clients whose businesses were heavily affected and they were hurting and they couldn't afford our services anymore. We also had clients who all of a sudden were more in demand and didn't have time for us anymore. And then we had everything in between. So what we decided to do, my team and I, really early on, was to help out where we could and put our relationships first. We've got very long-term loyal clients, and we were like, you know what, this pandemic is going to be temporary. What we are going to do is help our clients through this. So next to that, I decided to develop a private workshop where we would be sitting together on a video with our clients, with their executive teams, and talking about their strategic direction and how we could help them best, guiding them through this workshop. So it was basically our gift to our clients. And I can tell you, it absolutely didn't generate any revenue, didn't generate any profit. However, what it did was it generated a whole lot of goodwill and it strengthened our relationships even more. And I know that good things will trickle out of this, as it always does. So, reframing your value, think about what can I do now that will create value for our travel business and will generate future revenue. And are there any processes, systems, technologies that we can improve? So that's reframing value. Let's move on to the next step, which is all about connections. And connections is about strengthening relationships. So what are the characteristics of a strong relationship? Strong relationships are two-way relationships, and they are engaging for both parties. And this is now even more vital than ever. We also have a really great excuse for starting these two-way engaging relationships because we've got something in common. We've got something to talk about, this COVID thing. And people are open to talk. Just talking to someone and saying, how are you? Already can lead into a really great conversation. So who do we communicate with and in what order? Now, this is not COVID specific. This is marketing 101. However, I often see companies do this wrong, and I'll give you an example of that. So always, 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 and I can't say this enough, communicate internally first to your leadership team, your staff members, your partners, contractors, and suppliers. Our most important customers are internal before we go out with our external message. Once we go external, always, always, always customers first. Before we go on to prospects, those are people who have given us permission to communicate, but they're not customers yet. Or suspects, who are people who are in our target market, but haven't given us permission to communicate yet. And then the industry, wider market or community. So I'll give you an example of something that happened to me and where I thought it was done really badly. So about a month ago, I got an email from my hosting company for my website. And it started off really positive. You know, we sat together with our team and we decided we wanted to help businesses through this COVID situation. So what we are doing to help is we are giving away 8,000 free domain names. And I thought, oh, that's very positive. Until I read the next sentence. New customers only. And I went, well, first of all, I'm a customer. Why are you sending this to me? It's not relevant. And I actually don't feel that our relationship has been strengthened by this. It has been weakened. It happens all the time. So really make sure that you communicate in the right order and you give them a relevant message. The other thing in strengthening relationships is the customer journey. I'll touch on it quickly today. I will go more deeply into it next week. The customer journey is the process we go through whenever we make a purchase decision. Doesn't matter what it is. However, if the monetary value is high or the emotion around buying a product is high, the journey might be more lengthy or more elaborate. And obviously travel is a high emotional buy. So it starts with awareness. People knowing that you exist, that you're there, and that's where your brand comes in. Then they obviously want to consider you. Is this a company I want to do business with? Is this a brand I trust? And then we want to bring them on to buying from you, which is called conversion. And once they're bought, they obviously go and experience the product or the service, and hopefully they will become a loyal client. Now, this is where some great after research comes back in, because they found out that travel agents are actually quite loyal, especially when they book their total trip with a travel agent. And they found out that 44% of travel agents will use the same travel agent all the time. 30% of people will use the same or a different travel agency, and 25% will use a different travel agency all the time. So that's your loyalty. That's where your accreditation comes in as well. And then obviously, the ideal scenario is where we have our clients who are our advocates. You know, they refer us business. They want us to do well. So what I would suggest you do is you look at your current customer journey and the touch points you have with your customers and think about the following. Where can I strengthen my relationships? So how does my customer journey look at the moment? Where can we add more value? And also, where can we strengthen relationships? And that brings us to the last point in our framework, and that is called reputation. It's about enhancing your market position. And obviously, we all want the green tick. We don't want the red tick. So how do we get this green tick? The green tick is all about being relevant. Is this relevant to our customer? Will it add value to them? Are we serving them? So now is a really great time to bolster trust. And it's a really great time to have a really great balance between the business side and the human side. I call it the head and the heart of an organization. Yes, we want to be helpful, but we also want to be caring, we want to be rational, and we want to be emotional. And the Harvard Business Review says it really beautiful in one of their articles. Empathetic messages are really, really good. However, they must be backed up by actions, demonstrating that we've got the customers back. And this is really important because that means we're building up trust. We're not just all talk and no action. And you know, I mentioned earlier in this webinar, this is a time for stories. There are so many beautiful stories about travel that have come to the forefront in the last few months, weeks. You know, airlines that have picked up stranded country people in countries to bring them home. You know, KLM, the Royal Dutch Airline, hasn't been to Sydney for 20 years. However, they came here to pick up stranded Dutch travelers. Luxury hotels in New York City who have transformed their hotels into becoming accommodation for hospital workers. Beautiful stories. There's so many great stories to tell. And I think this is really a time to do it. And then my last point in reputation is also don't be afraid to ask for help. Show our human side. It's okay to be vulnerable. And two examples I want to share with you here. This beautiful photo of the horses is actually my cousin, Freya, who is now living in South Africa. And she is running a horse safari company in a beautiful place called St. Lucia. And here you can, do horse riding either on the beach or in the savannah between the animals. And we did it with our family 3 years ago, and it's an absolutely amazing experience. However, she was hit by the pandemic and obviously needed to feed the horses. She set up a GoFundMe page and has been able to raise funds to be able to keep feeding the animals through this pandemic. Another great example closer to home is the Walkabout Australia Wildlife Park that I spoke about before on the Central Coast in Calgary. They were allowed to open up last Monday. They were given special permission to reopen. However, they communicated very clearly, but we have to follow the rules. And how to do this, we need your help. So don't be afraid to ask for help. So, enhancing your market reputation, ask yourself, how can we show and talk about our human sides? What can we do now to enhance our reputation? And where do we need help? So that brings us to the end of our framework. And hopefully you found some value in these 5 steps. So what to do next? Because obviously, as I said before, I'd like you to get value out of this far after the ending of this workshop. First of all, capture your key learnings and actions and use your worksheet over the next days and weeks. Engage and align your team. Use this worksheet with them. Reach out to me if you want any extra support or questions. I'm absolutely happy to help any one of you. And sign up for the digital workshop, which will happen next week, or the brand workshop the week after. So this has brought me to the end of this, and I'm now going to hand it over to Joe to see if there are any questions from the floor.
Thanks so much, Sonja. I really enjoyed that. And I just love the energy and passion that oozes out of you when you just talk about business opportunities and areas for growth. I'm just going to have a look here. And as I lean in, I'm looking at some questions that you guys are providing. So the first one is from Natasha. She just wanted to know whether the sessions are being recorded. So I'm pleased to say that this is the intellectual property of Sonja, but she is very pleased for us to have recorded them, and so that, yes, they will be placed on the AFTR website. So please feel free to share the recordings amongst your colleagues, or even revisit and go back over, particularly as you start to work through the worksheets. Sonja, I've got lots of comments here saying brilliant session, fantastic session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do have a question here around storytelling. So
yes.
You mentioned that, they're very important. And so can we use this when we communicate with customers? And maybe you could provide an example of like how we could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, stories are so powerful. So every time you communicate with customers or in your customer journey, think about how you can weave in stories, because we remember stories. That's why I weave stories and examples through this presentation. But you know what's even more exciting is you can actually get your customers to create the stories for you. Because obviously your customers are the ones that are really experiencing your products. So you can ask them for stories. And this is where you can get really to start up your two-way and engaging relationships. People love to share, especially about great experiences they've had. So yes, stories are really powerful in every contact moment, in every part of the marketing mix, in every contact moment with your team. But it's also really a really good way to include team members and even customers, bringing them into your business and helping them create the stories with you.
I really like that you mentioned that. And in fact, probably for a couple of years now, AFTA has been doing blogs on the ATAS website. So ATAS is our consumer-facing website where we encourage consumers to come and find an ATAS accredited travel expert. And we have a blog section in that where we like to highlight through stories the expertise and professionalism of our agents. And we have a special blog writer, and he actually reaches out to many of our accredited members and asks for some really good news stories. And we're always on the hunt for these. So if you're on the webinar today and haven't participated in one of those, please email afta@afta.com.au and just share with us your interest in participating in our blogs. So
That's really good.
Yeah, and it's been really successful, and it's a real, it's a big draw card for consumers to come to our website and research, and helps them make decisions on why they would book with an accredited agent. I have another question here, and I know that we're right on 12, but I just want to touch on the customer journey that you showed us.
Yep.
Now, is there an optimum number of contact moments, Sonja?
That's a very good question. The answer is there is not. It depends on your business and it depends on your target market. But let me give you a couple of pointers. People forget about businesses, people, messages within 6 weeks. So if they haven't heard from us for 6 weeks, we're out of there. We're forgotten. The other pointer is that if a message is new, people need to see a message 7 times before it sticks. So repetition is quite important. What you really need to look at is you need to look at what I call your conversion rates. So what is your, for example, your conversion rates from people prospects, or from prospects to quotes, or from quotes proposals to sale, and then also apologies. When people
You've done a lot of talking in the last hour. I'll give you a second to take a drink.
Thank you. Also, repeat business. So look at what your conversions are, and then think about how you can either improve those conversions. And what I see in general, by working with businesses over a lot of industries, the most opportunities are often in increasing the conversion rates in repeat business or getting more referrals. Because a lot of businesses, and I'm talking in general now, are quite transactional based. So they very much focus on the front end of the customer journey, but they're not so much focused on the back end of the customer journey. So it's not about the amount of contact moments, but it's about the quality of contact moments. And it's also about when are these contact moments occurring. And how can I stay in contact with maybe a traveler who's traveling twice a year, but what am I doing in between the times that that person is not traveling? So yeah, it's unfortunately, there's no like direct answer for that. It's different, but you can look at certain elements. So I hope that gave a little bit of insights.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you. Now, I've had another question come in, so I will ask this as our last one before I hand back over to you to wrap up. And I really like this one because it's on the importance of strategic planning and making time for this. So, you know, a lot of our members are small business owners and operators. And so It's so easy to get caught up working in the business and not really spending time on the business. So can you recommend
Correct.
any tips on how we can integrate strategic planning into our work days?
That's a really good question. And it's something that is really close to my heart because I know the importance of it. And, the best time for strategic planning is endings. And why do I say that? When we end something, it's a really good time to evaluate and then to look forward. So the best ending we have, and that I think is an amazing ending, which also gives us a time for breathing, is the end of the year. December, when we go into the holidays, it's a really great time just before you go on holidays to evaluate the year and start already thinking about what you're going to do next year. So once a year, doing strategic planning, really, really important. I know that some companies work on financial year. But for me personally, end of the year works because it's a much more natural flow. That's your big time. And also realize that when you do strategic planning, it's not about you sitting behind your desk and doing it. No, it's just asking yourself a question. What do I want to do better next year? And then going on holidays and not even worrying about it. And the answers will come up. Break that down once you've done your yearly planning into quarters. 90 days are really good times to do your execution. So what we do is we take our 12-month plan and we break it down in 3 months. And we don't worry about what's happening after 3 months. I then break the 3 months down into what do I need to do each month? What do I need to do each week? And I, at the end of each day, go, okay, this was my day. Before I finish, I write down, actually, this is what I do, I'll tell you. When I start my day, I write down what is my intention for today. So my intention for today is I want to do a really good webinar for AFTA where people get a lot of value out of it. And then at the end of the day, I look back at the day and I go, what did I achieve this day? And I keep that as a record and it's really motivational. And then I write down as well what I'm grateful for. So I do that at the end of each day. It takes me 2 minutes, but it keeps me on track. I do a bit more at the end of the Friday to set me up for the next week. And then I do a little bit more at the end of the month. But it's just a really great habit to get into. It gives me the motivation to be the best I can. And it really keeps you on track. And it's not a lot of time.
Well, I really like that tip. I'm very much a list kind of person, but I really like putting in more of a strategic frame of mind as well, what's my intention for today? And then that reflection is so important. Oh, I like
so
that.
Important.
I'm going to adopt that going forward.
Yeah. Great. Can I say one thing about that? The intention is just one thing, it's not like 100 to-do list. It's just one. What is the one thing? If I do this one thing, I'm happy with myself. And then at the end of the day has gone completely pear-shaped. I still write down, what am I grateful for? Or what did I do well? Just to give myself a pat on the shoulder, because who else is going to do it?
Yeah, very true. Well, Sonja, I know we're past 12 o'clock and we promised everyone would only take up an hour. So is there anything you'd like to conclude with today before we wrap up?
Yeah, thank you. I just would like to conclude with one quote that I really like. And it's about, the best way to predict your future is really to create it. And, I really think for you to be here today, what you've done is you've taken the first step in creating your future. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of you. It's been a real pleasure to be here today and to share this with you. And I really hope from the bottom of my heart that you got value out of this. And again, please feel free to reach out if you would like any extra support or have any questions. My details are here. Feel free to connect. And I'm looking forward to talking to all of you next week.
Thank you so much, Sonja. And before we wrap up, I do know with Melinda on the line, who's head of AFTA Education and Training, she'll be really keen to get an understanding for what other topics that our members would find valuable. So after this webinar, you are going to get, and there's Mel, you are going to get a survey, and we really ask that you fill that out, both with in mind of like what you would like to cover in the future, but also covering off today's webinar, how you enjoyed it, what you thought of Sonja, and did you find it value to your business? So we'd really appreciate you taking the time. I think the survey will take you all of a minute, so if you could do that, that really helps us. And I do hope that you'll all join us next Thursday when Sonja talks about digital. Well, that's it. So thanks, guys, and have a really good afternoon, a fantastic Friday, and an even better weekend.
Thanks, Sonja. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sonja.
Mel.